To you. A crowded bench. Hello, everyone. How are you? Welcome to another new episode of the Good Place podcast. I have to admit, this is the first time we're gonna have three on a bench, so that's amazing. Everyone, feel free to pass by. That's part of the recording on a public bench in a public space. I'm Robin, and I'm joined here today by Chris and Melissa. We're in Delft, and I have to say, it's a beautiful surrounding here, scenery. On the back, you see life and bicycles passing by. Tell us a bit more, like, where in Delft are we?
We're in the Hof van Delft neighborhood, so just on the outside of the city center. For those familiar, the other side of the train station from the old historic center. Nice neighborhood with lots of different kinds of Dutch buildings, as you can see. And we're right now sitting on the quiet side of the Bouten Watersloot. So this is where it's only for walking. You might sometimes see people on bikes, but that's the Netherlands. But otherwise, it's quite a nice place to just sit and enjoy the sunshine or watch people pass by.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had to postpone our interview a few times due to the season. I'm happy we were able to, stay dry for once. Hello, doggy. What a switch on, and me reaching out to you. There was I think a recent occurrence about, a passport moment here in the Netherlands. Chris, could you tell us a bit more about that?
Of course, yeah, and I mean, Melissa and I are now in our mid-40s, and we always say, we've been together, dating and then married for the better part of 28 years. And we always say, if you'd have told us when we first met that this is where we would end up, we would have laughed at you, because never in our wildest dreams would we be living in the Netherlands, living in Delft, and now, fully fledged citizens of the Netherlands and the European Union. But it's been a journey that we've taken together, and now with our two small children. They were small when we first arrived here. They're now teenagers.
I have small children.
Yeah. But a journey that now the four of us have taken together in this incredible city, this incredible country that we absolutely fell in love with through our travels, through the work that we were doing, and now we're lucky enough to live, work, and represent the Netherlands in our, not just our personal lives, but in our professional lives. And it's quite a special thing that we get to do this every day, and just to live on the street is another kind of remarkable aspect to this. We stumble from one incredible opportunity to the other, which is really part of our story.
Take us a bit on that journey, please, for those watching or listening, and what made you decide? Where were you based? What made you decide to come on this side of the world?
Yeah, we had been living in Vancouver in Canada on the west coast, which is a beautiful, wonderful place for nature and water and new cities. And we had chosen to move there from suburban Ontario because we wanted to live in a big city, but we wanted to have that quality of life that, it's considered one of the top cities in the world to live for a reason. And so we were there for 12 years. We moved there when our eldest was only 1. And then she grew up there. We moved here when she was 12. And our youngest was born there, so he's the true Vancouverite of the four of us. Only true Vancouverite, which is, if you're from there, you understand not many people are actually from Vancouver. And what it was just, I think we had started for economic reasons and enjoyment reasons, walking and cycling a lot in our city. We became local advocates and decided that in order to do that as communicators, we had to come to the Netherlands to experience it firsthand. And so that was in 2016. We came here, we traveled around with the kids for 5 weeks, And it was on that trip that everyone decided if we could live here, we wanted to. The kids got their first taste of freedom outside of mom and dad's basically arm length, but also eyesight. And for them, they really valued that opportunity. And so, yeah, it was finding whatever way we could to make it happen. As it was, we managed to publish a book where we interviewed so many Dutch people and basically used that as a job interview. So secured jobs for ourselves. And,
Through those interviews.
Through those interviews. And actually one of them, it's on tape somewhere, like, hey, if you ever have work, we'd be willing to relocate. And making that decision to, uproot our lives and come here, but always with this mindset of it wasn't just Chris and I making the decision, it was the kids as well. So every conversation from 2016 onwards to 2019, this is what we'd like to do, we have this opportunity, is it okay? Because Chris and I have both made big moves, him a bigger move than me when we were around the same age as our kids, and we knew it wasn't going to be easy, but for our quality of life and that for our kids, it was something we wanted to do together, but make sure that they were okay with it the whole way.
And with the benefit of hindsight, it's amazing how quickly it happened because, we came back in 2016 really inspired by the Netherlands, and we channeled a lot of what we refer to as post-Netherlands depression into the first book, because I think when people working in this space, they see how good cycling and urban planning can be, they come back to their car-dependent, car-dominated North American city quite depressed and angry. And so we channeled a lot of that into the book and made that book as good as we possibly could. And then, it came out in September of 2018. We did this whirlwind of a speaking tour across Canada, the US, Australia, and New Zealand. The job offer came through while we were in Australia in November of 2018. And for Brexit reasons, because I have a British passport, we had to be in the Netherlands by the end of February, 3 months later. And so, we got back from that speaking tour. We basically sold everything we owned, packed our lives into 4 suitcases, did all the research we needed to in terms of getting the kids in schools and getting an apartment. And from the moment the book came out, less than 5 months later, we're moving to the Netherlands. We have a rental apartment here in Delft, and we just throw ourselves into this kind of crazy idea because, and then our feet haven't hit the ground since.
Amazing, because there's so much in there in that journey. Like, that trip to Europe was also a way to experience that other side of life, that slice of life, and taking your kids in that enthusiasm, and you're all on the same page, and then you make it a collective decision. That's quite something, like what it would have turned out if your kids wouldn't have liked it, for example.
Oh, that's I mean, that's a.
Would you still push through? I don't know.
Well, that is the $1 million question, and it is why we've more often I think than our kids would like, we're always asking, are you still okay? Are you still happy? Yeah. Have we ruined your life? And even so last year, our son made the trip back to Vancouver to visit a close friend. Better. And when he got back, I said, I assumed he would say, well, I want to move back, because he still has a lot of close friends back there. That's where he grew up. That's all of his memories in the first 10 years of his life are from there. And he said, no, I feel this is home. It was nice to be there. He did say there was too many cars, so we had a bit of a proud parent moment. He really says this is where he wants to be. And now similarly, our eldest, she's about a year and a half from now, she'll be graduating from college. Right. And, looking for work and where does she want to be? And we've even asked, will you stay in the Netherlands? She has a boyfriend right now in the UK, for example. Will she move there? And she says, I'll go and visit, but Netherlands I'm happy here, which is good. It makes us not so concerned anymore that we might have ruined things along the way.
Phew.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can imagine that, it's Yeah, and there's such an integral part of your being. You know, for me, somebody asked me like, "What's my good place?" And I was like, finding the right balance between being a family, father, family guy, but also following my own creative ambitions. Because making a move to the Netherlands for you was also, it also had to do with career, right, or with job opportunity.
Yeah.
No, I think we always said we wouldn't have made this gigantic leap without having a job waiting for us, and it so happened that through the book, through the work that we had done, we were lucky enough to find two organizations that were willing to take a risk from their side, and it was also a risk from their side, and so we don't for a moment take for granted the alignment of the stars that was necessary to make this all happen for everybody, and amazingly 6 years into this Dutch adventure of ours, we're still seemingly all on the same page. I'm still working the same job and kind of pinching myself each day that I still get paid to do the work that I do, because it is now taking all the things that we were inspired by from this country and exporting them, helping other cities and regions around the world learn from best practice from the Netherlands and become a little bit more Dutch in their own individual ways. Hello.
But also back to Canada, or in general, like around the globe?
Quite literally everywhere. I mean, the Dutch Cycling Embassy is a global organization, and we're working in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, in North America. So it's quite special, the work that we get to do insofar as not just the travel, but meeting of like-minded people and helping them get informed and inspired just through the storytelling that we do. And again, at the end of the day, it's not like Melissa and I have any special training or experience to get where we are today. We just, I think, tell compelling stories through the words and the videos and the photography that we use that has captured an audience and convinces them to continue hiring us.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, then the position where you're at is perfect when it comes to mobility, right? Or movement in cities and creating healthier cities.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about what your good place is, and I think for us, what we've realized in our at this point in our lives, in our middle age, that our good place is having this sort of home base that we can come back to, that's quiet, that we feel calm in, but then still being able to be so well connected to everywhere else. So we just actually this morning just pushed send on all of the edits for our third book, and what was so great about that is that we were able to go and travel around the world and learn about the stories of cities, 11 cities around the world. We didn't get to all of them, all 9 out of the 11. But having that ability to go places and explore, but then always know you have this comfort to come home to, I think is at least my good place. Yeah.
And in what sense is that home base different than that home, like having that home base? Vancouver or Ontario or UK.
We try to describe this, to capture this. I think the experience of getting off the train at Delft station when one or both of us are traveling, to me still gives me goosebumps. Like coming out of the train station to the soundscape and the experience of it, because we talk about this all the time. You exit most train stations in Europe or around the world, and it's lined up, taxis honking and cars buzzing, and it's a very stressful experience. And we get off of the train here, and we're met with the sounds of the city, the church bells and the birds and the terraces and the creaking bicycles, and that really, I think, the sound, but also just the coziness, the gezelligheid of the city really hits you in waves, and so it's a really nice feeling. Even all these the trips that we take to distant parts of the planet, Delft still has that feeling of coziness and homeliness for us.
Yeah, and I think we had found it in Vancouver for the time of life where we were. And I think we needed to have that experience to then be able to cherish the experience we have now in living in a city that was still also quite well connected, that we could we were living in a cooperative house. So we had a very close community, or cooperative apartment. Very close community of neighbors where our kids were friends with our neighbors, and they had a central courtyard to play in. We were close to their schools, close to activities, close to shopping, like all of those things that we value about Delft we had there. But it was, I think the difference here is it's just that, like, that feeling of gezelligheid that Chris referred to. This, like, we knew our neighbors in our cooperative because we had to work together.
Yeah.
But beyond that, we didn't know anybody. And from almost day one when we moved here, we got introduced to our neighbors around us, and now we're on a different street, but having similar conversations with various neighbors of all ages and getting to know their lives, hearing their stories. They were always the Canadays up the street, even though I don't know when we're going to tell them we zijn nu Nederlanders ook.
Yeah, nice.
But I think there's just that connection to the city that I think we were always looking for, not just in terms of the city itself, but the people that we found here. And I think that's why it feels, like the right place for us right now, and hopefully, our kids, whether it's this place or somewhere else, also find that for them. Yeah.
But you reckon they already have that in this phase of life?
I think they're 16 and 18. I think they're searching for that still. Yeah. And I think they like Delft because it's calm and quiet. When we take them to Amsterdam or Rotterdam, they always think it's too busy here. Even Utrecht, even though we all love Utrecht as well.
Yeah.
But they...
Talking about bells and...
Yeah, exactly.
That as well, huh?
Yeah. But I think for them it's... I would argue they don't know what they want yet, and they shouldn't, because they're still just teenagers.
But when we didn't build this house, we bought this house. Its location, its proximity to the city center and the train station. We always and will continue to think of it as a safe space and a home base for them, no matter where they end up.
Yeah.
Our daughter's doing her college in Rotterdam. Our son is eyeing a similar college in Amsterdam. They will, through internships, through careers, through relationships, find themselves now as citizens of the EU with all kinds of opportunities to travel all across the continent. But we hope that this is a safe space for them to keep coming back when times get rough, when things go wrong.
Or just if they need to come home.
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody's birthday.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. And everyone has to find their own path in like you guys did, right? I mean, through traveling, through the work that you do, and to make a little step bridge to your work. I mean, it's focused on, of course, on mobility, very much so. Like, what is that good place for you? You describe, what's that good place, or what's that healthy city that you foresee?
Yeah, I mean, so our second...
Less cars, sorry.
Less cars, yeah. So with the second book that we wrote, it was very much focused on our experiences in the first year of living here and why it was that we so quickly felt at home here. And particularly with my work, I'm focused on mobility, but very much from the human infrastructure side of it. So how children and older adults and women and people with disabilities and everyone else in between those categories or beyond has access to the city in an equitable way. And what we noticed about living here and what we wrote about in that book about being in Delft was that our kids could enjoy the things that they wanted to and get to the things they needed to in the way that made most sense to them. I suddenly felt not only more comfortable as a woman, but not alone on the infrastructure anymore, which is, I mean, it's nice to feel a part of a community as opposed to like that strange woman that rides in her regular clothes on her Dutch bike in Vancouver up hills. Now I'm just...
Not zigzagging.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm just the same as everyone else. And sometimes, that can be a bit boring, but I think mostly it just feels nice. And so, my work really continues to build on that and to help other cities, regardless of where they are, really understand the people that make up their communities and why mobility is an important ingredient in ensuring that regardless of someone's age or gender or ability or income, that they can enjoy the same things that I have the privilege to enjoy for the position that I'm in. But in more places. I always say, I think what I always tie it back to is our parents are now in their late 60s, early 70s in suburban Ontario. We have 3 nieces and a nephew also in the same place, and what I want for them is to be able to not have to make this giant move, because it's not easy, but be able to have that same quality of life. And that's my raison d'être, I guess.
I mean, we were always asked, or the joke was always when we first made the move to the Netherlands, oh, you did it because of the cycling, right? And to a certain extent, that was true, because our first trip here was focused on the bike. Our first book was focused on the cycling. But then I think we came very quickly to the realization that it's not about the bike, that the bike is the tool, it's not the end goal. And it's the tool that cities in the Netherlands use to create more livable, inclusive, and prosperous places. So I joke now often, we're not the Dutch Cycling Embassy, the organization that I work for. It's the Dutch Livable, Inclusive, and Prosperous City Embassy, because we can all agree that we should get more people biking, but that needs to be towards an end goal of just making better cities. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what tool you use. I think cities in Switzerland have similar quality of life and similar outcomes through using the tram as their mode of transportation. So they have this fast, frequent tram network that kind of works towards the same end as all the bicycles in the Netherlands. And so at the end of the day, we're not mode of transportation focused. We're more focused on the end goal and what are the various tools that we can use to get there. And for a lot of cities, the bike is part of that mobility mix that we have to start looking at.
Yeah, it's more about the benefits that come with it, right? And that accessibility and so on.
Yeah.
It's like the bench I'm using as a tool to have these conversations with people.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing is we have these conversations. Now I have the privilege of doing it as an independent consultant.
Ja, tuurlijk. Mag hoor.
Hoi. Ja, dat is prima. Dankjewel.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So working as an independent consultant, I'm having conversations, of course, about mobility, but I am talking about the importance of seating, the importance of having accessible restrooms for people to use, just this bench is obviously valuable for what we're doing, but it's valuable for someone who just needs a rest. And having these in our cities is just, it seems like such a small thing, but, it has a huge impact on just how people enjoy public space and just have those moments to rest, relax, and carry on with their day.
We've done a great job of not talking about cars, and I think that also needs to be addressed, is like the dominance and dependence of the car in cities has just such a negative impact on the quality of life, and at the end of the day, it is the coziness of Delft comes down to just there's so few cars on the streets, and so this is really comes down to the heart of what we're trying to do is help cities make that connection between what are their mobility policies and what is the quality of their public space and their public realm and their streets, because we give up so much space to the private automobile without any thought, and the opportunities really for improving people's quality of life are just by changing the way that we move in subtle ways, and there's cities around the world that are making great strides on that, and that's really kind of where we're focused our time and energy in 2025.
It's always a matter of just reinforcing that it's not, although people will often take us as being like anti-car, or that cars are bad, there's always a time and a place, and it's just that we've gotten to this point where they're everywhere and they're used as the excuse to how families need one to live or function, how people with disabilities need one to access the city, how as we age it's the only way that we can stay connected, but it's not, and we know we have so many tools to show us how we can do that in other ways, and it's sometimes the car is the best tool, but other times there's a buckfiets if you're doing groceries, or you can take a train connection if you need to go a bit further abroad. There's always another choice, and I think that's where we try to emphasize is it's not one mode versus another. It's this combination, multimodality, that is how you can improve the quality of the city.
Well, and the other kind of postscript to this journey of moving to the Netherlands is the fact that our Canadian driver's licenses weren't transferable to the Netherlands. So we came to this country, we went to City Hall to hand in our Canadian driver's licenses for Dutch ones, and we were told immediately, sorry. The Dutch government has agreements with 2 Canadian provinces,
We're not
Alberta and Quebec,
Oh.
and not the one we want.
Yeah.
Not the one that we came from. And so we were kind of faced with a bit of a crossroads there, insofar as, do we want to go through the training program, which is 20 plus hours of in-car training, lots of expense and education and examination. And up to that point, we'd been living pretty comfortably without even needing to borrow or share a car. And so we said, okay, well, let's give it a try and see if we can live as a family completely car free. In Vancouver, we were car light because we were still renting and borrowing cars. And here we are 6 years later without even the need to get a driver's license here, because the cycling networks, the train networks, all the mobility system works together to get us.
Network as well.
The walking, of course. And we do plenty of walking here in Delft because we are so close to the city centre. That we don't even miss it. We don't even feel like we're sacrificing our lives by not having this piece of plastic, which when we lived in Canada, we counted down the days to our 16th birthday to get your driver's license, because that was your freedom and independence away from your parents driving you everywhere. And so I think, I mean, they say a lot of what you do is a rejection of your childhood and your upbringing. So in a way, I think we've pushed back against that car-dependent suburban upbringing by moving to a place where we don't need a car to live.
And it also comes down to habits, behavior, and how you get around. I mean, some people cannot even afford a car, so that's not even a choice. Right?
Exactly. And in 2024, I was working for a larger consultancy with offices across the Netherlands. And there is this question that comes to mind. It's like, am I going to be able to get to all these offices reasonably? And granted, I didn't have to do any client meetings in smaller villages, which probably would have been a little more challenging. But overall, the connection between walking to the station, taking a train, sometimes a bit longer, and then, either walking or taking the OV fiets on the other side.
Love the OV fiets.
Yeah, exactly. It made it possible. And I quickly, after I had started that job or that contract, I made a post online and said, if I was still living in Canada, this would be impossible. I would not be able to work in a different city and live from where I lived, and I would have either had to move my entire family, or I would have had to drive and be in traffic and all of those things that come with commuting. And it's only because I had the choice here that I didn't have to resort to that. I could open my employment market up a little bit more. Now, granted, I recognize fully that I'm in a position where that is possible, and not everyone has that choice, depending on the hours they work or the locations where their company might be located. But for a vast majority of people, the fact that the trains here are always full is testament to a lot of people are using them, from students to people working to people just vacationing to get around this country. So, yeah.
But there's an irony there that it's just occurred to me like a bolt of lightning, is that we moved to Delft because our jobs were located here, because it was kind of this quintessential 15-minute city where everything is within a short walk or bike ride. And at the time, for the first year or so, the kids were within a 5-minute cycle ride of school. You were within a 5-minute cycle ride of your office.
Yeah.
I was 10 minutes from my office.
Yeah.
And here we are 6 years later. I'm working in Utrecht. You were working recently in Amersfoort.
Yeah.
Our daughter's in Rotterdam, and our son's looking at
up.
colleges in Amsterdam. So we're now doing those longer distance commutes, albeit on the train. But that just, I think, speaks to the connectivity of Delft. And one of the reasons why we didn't hesitate moving here is because we always had that connectivity to the larger region and the employment, education opportunities that come with it.
Interesting. I had an interview with Carlos Moreno on the 15-Minute City.
Nice.
Yeah, and about his book and everything, and just that, and designing cities in such a way. It's interesting, but it's also like the accessibility in the Netherlands is great because of the distance, of course, as well, right? I mean,
It's a
in
small
London,
country.
you would still be not at the other side of the of the city. Like, for example, traveling to Utrecht from here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's also the beauty of I think also the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And still we're complaining about the train system and everything, right?
I think it's just inherent. The place where you live, you find problems with it, right? It's what we all do.
Yeah.
And it's only until you experience something different that you know that there's something better or there's a different option. I mean, we find ourselves doing it from time to time now too. It's like, the train is 10 minutes late. This is so annoying. I'm going to miss my connection and now I have to wait 5 minutes for the next train. You know, like these silly little things but it impacts your life and, doesn't make it not annoying. But yeah,
we want things to go faster, or like there's levels of accessibility that you expect accessibility at some point.
The more reliable and accessible something is, the more you take it for granted, and then the more fault you find with it. And I think for us, we just have to go to Germany to be reminded how good we have in terms of trains here. Because the Deutsche Bahn is terrible in terms of their reliability and their communication, but then also going to Canada or the US because there's just no trains, period. So it's all, of course, relative, and I think, not just with the trains, but with the cycling, a lot of Dutch people who are born and raised with such privilege don't necessarily recognize how privileged they are.
There's a great video that's like ended up in my Instagram stories I think it's just like a mock-up, or a joke. But there's a young woman living in LA. She's a Dutch woman, and she's looking for the cycle path. And people are like, "What are you talking about?" And it's just like that's the thing is you don't realize what you have until you're somewhere else. And she's like, "No, like the cycle path to get to the beach." They're like, "Yeah, that's an hour away by bike. Are you sure you want to go there?" And there's no bike path. What are you talking about? I mean, there is. To be fair, I've ridden it. But
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always like it is exactly that. Is you take for granted what you have until you don't have it or you experience something different. And I think we had that in Vancouver as well with the public transport, because the SkyTrain, which is like the elevated metro essentially, from where we lived, it would be like 10-minute headways at best, like at the longest, between trains. And if it was delayed in any way, shape, or form, we'd be so annoyed. And then we went to DC and we had to take the train to get to a meeting, and we walked down we were like, we don't need to check the schedule. We'll just walk down, and you get down to the platform and you're like, oh, well, the next train's in half an hour.
Half an hour. For their metro system,
Yeah. So it's, it's the little things.
What would be the dream? What do you envision? Like car-free cities, everyone cycling. What's that? Something tangible that we can look out for.
I think for me the dream is, I think like I said earlier, it's that all this, like more cities, not just Dutch cities, get to enjoy this. So, and we're seeing it, but I think it's still slow. But for me, I think it always comes down to where we start our lives and where we end our lives in terms of children and older adults. Having that ability to go outside and play, or call on a friend without parents being stressed about what they might encounter along the way in terms of traffic or lack of safety, and then older adults being able to age in place as long as they can, to stay in the homes that they've built, and still be a part of the community, even if the community around them is changing. And to me, it's not necessarily more biking and fewer cars, although fewer cars would help for sure, but it's more just that quality of space where it really is like these communities in our cities. That for me is the dream, that people feel like they're part of the community regardless of the size of the city and where they're living, as opposed to feeling isolated and alone. I think that's for me anyway.
So I mean, long story short, I think we found our dream here in Delft, and it is our intention, it was always our intention to grow old here and for our kids to grow up here. But at the end of the day, for the cities that we work with around the world, it's not for us to tell them what they should be like or what they want. I think it's up to them to decide what their goals and aspirations are, and then to ask for help. And that's where we're able to provide some guidance, some best practice, some insights and inspiration. But it's not like we're traveling around the world telling cities what they should be like. It's more a collaboration. They need to come up with their own vision and then their own plan to get there, and then we can help them with the steps along the way. So it's, I think for every city it's going to be different.
Yeah.
For every child.
For every child.
It's going to be different.
Exactly.
Because you're probably going to do the same for them.
Yeah.
They have to figure it out.
Yeah.
And we help them along the way.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Well, and it's
Interesting metaphor, yeah.
Yeah. It is like raising children. Everyone's going to make mistakes along the way. I think as parents, we are learning this as we go with our teenagers, is, we want to inherently help them not make the same mistakes that we did. And there's advice that you can give them to help them avoid some of the hardships. But at the end of the day, they need to learn and make a choice that works for them and resembles their lives.
Cities
I
are
know.
like teenagers. Another light bulb moment.
I think that's a new book.
The city as a teenager.
I see it as a title.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking of different communities,
Yeah.
this could, could be a focus niche. Of a
Yeah,
book.
exactly.
But I think in all seriousness, like, a lot of cities are struggling with the same challenges, the same problems, and oftentimes it feels like they're alone in trying to figure out the solutions. And so that's part of the fabric that we're able to create, is this communication and sharing of ideas and inspiring each other to help understand that, Paris, London, Amsterdam, Miami, Sao Paulo, they're all struggling with a lot of the same things, and certain cities are trailblazers and coming up with solutions, and others are falling behind, but they can help each other along the way, hopefully, and provide some guidance there, because that's the only way that we reach the the optimal solution, I think, is all by collaborating in this global way.
I literally just thought of another example of how cities are like teenagers. So while you were saying that, is, in this work, especially because we have such a Dutch focus, we always hear, oh, well, we're not the Netherlands. We're not Amsterdam. We can't be like that. And that's the kids. Like, I'm different. I'm unique. And my problem is totally different from whatever you dealt with when you were a kid.
Puberty.
Yeah. And it is a matter of saying, okay, yeah, you are different, but here's how you can learn from what I might have experienced or what someone else around the world is experiencing. So,
Oh, my gosh.
man.
Yeah. If it's
And there's teenagers who always think that they're grown-ups.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But they still
we
need
know
to...
everything. We don't need your help anymore.
Yeah, but we still need to grow up. Even if you're big or tall or large,
Yeah.
you still need to grow up.
Exactly. Oh, goodness.
If it's not a full-blown book, it's at least a LinkedIn post, maybe. I don't know. This is...
Great.
I'll definitely share it.
Yeah.
Chris, Melissa, thank you so much already for this very inspiring. It ended up being like a brainstorm, this conversation. I already introduced you to our conversation cards, which we always use as a final statement to, cannot be related to the topics we talked about, but who knows? They're broad enough to bring them back to the conversation. Yes.
One each, or?
Depends on the question, I think.
All right.
You start. Life.
What is something you wish you had learned earlier in life? Oh, that's a big one.
When you were a teenager.
I think, I wish I had known earlier that, things will change. I think I was so stuck in this idea of who I was supposed to be, whether that was just the way society was at the time of, you have to pick what you're going to study and then stick with that for the rest of your life. I think if I had known then that it's not static, it's not forever, I don't know that I would have gotten here any faster, and I'm a strong believer that I am where I am because I've taken the steps that I did. But I think if I'd maybe put a little bit less pressure on myself to be that person I thought I was supposed to be, maybe it would have been a little bit different. But overall, I'm still happy with where I ended up.
Chris, you can answer that same question or pick any one.
Let's pick a new one, because I probably would have answered the question in a very similar way to Melissa.
Okay,
because
good,
I think
good. It's a life question as well.
Have your values and beliefs changed over time? If so, how?
Perhaps through your Netherlands experience. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, having known you for 28 years, I say yes, but it's your turn.
Okay. Maybe you should answer this question on my behalf.
No, I had my turn. It's your turn.
How would you say my values, and give me a direction here as an outsider?
As an outsider, I mean, you were always focused on the buildings and not the streets when we started.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that was...
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think similar to Melissa, I was told at 16 I need to figure out what to do with the rest of my life. And so I was literally like, oh, I like math. Oh, I like art. Okay, I should be an architect. And from there, you know, it was applying to architecture schools. I went to university in Toronto, graduated, and very quickly realized that that was not my passion, that I was far more interested, as Melissa said, in the space between the buildings than the buildings themselves. Yeah. And particularly working in Vancouver, a city with an absolutely one of the worst housing crisis, affordability crisis in the world. At the time, I was designing multi-million-dollar homes for very wealthy clients. And mobility, the advocacy, the passion project on the evenings and weekends was a form of soul washing, you know, to cleanse my soul from from worsening Vancouver's housing crisis. And so, yeah, I mean, I think those values have always been there. It's just the ability now to go from designing buildings to actually turning my passion into a profession, and to do it from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And it's far more than that. It's evenings and weekends and everything.
It's a lifestyle.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But now, you know, it's, I think, and the architecture profession, this is ripe, like the focus on the individual buildings rather than the spaces where people spend their time and hopefully spend their money. The cities that we're shaping are far more important than individual buildings. And so hopefully now I'm part of the solution rather than the problem. Not to say that architecture isn't a noble profession, but I think architects in particular could do more to make cities better places.
Nice shift.
Was that a...
Yeah.
Is that approval? Is that a nod?
Yeah. I mean, we've known each other since we were 17. Of course, our values have changed over that time. But yeah, I think, like I said, I think this is always the path that we were supposed to be on. And, you know, I think we're about to enter into, not about to, in the next 5 years or so, we're going to enter into another stage of our lives as our children maybe move out. We'll see.
Spread their wings.
Yeah. And I think everything sort of informs the next step. And I think from when we were 17 and wanting to get away from our parents and move to a big city to now like being basically back in like a small, what is essentially a suburb of Rotterdam and The Hague, you know, we've kind of come full circle, but in the way that meant that was where we were supposed to be. And I think that's what we were always looking for. We just didn't know what it was until we got smacked in the face with it when we stepped out of the train out of the train after moving here with our luggage and being like, oh, this is actually pretty nice. Okay, I think we could stay here.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we hope that influences our children's decisions, you know, what they study, what they choose to do for professions as well. We've always stressed to them, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you're happy. Yeah. And so it's a very different upbringing than what we received, where there was, I think, significant pressure to succeed and to go to university and to achieve great things, or whatever that means.
To be fair to our parents, they will say that they did tell us to be happy. And in fact, that my parents said, yeah, sure, go study fashion design, just make sure it's at a university, was, you know, they were telling us to do what made us happy. But I think we had a different sort of, I think in general, we have this perception of it being a different upbringing. So, yeah. I don't want to throw our parents under the bus.
under the bike.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not certainly not my intention, but I think
It's a different generation. It's
Yeah.
a different point of view. I mean, yeah, we're the same age range. I mean, my parents are the same.
Yeah.
But soon they also realized that there are also different forms or other ways to be happy.
Yeah.
And it's not money related or it's not financially related to, it's like, for example, starting your own business. It's exciting. They would have never done it perhaps.
Yeah.
But when they see that it's fulfillment and other values start to become play an important part of your life, then I like,
Yeah.
sit on a bench, talk to people. If that makes you happy in life, do it.
Do it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think we often joke like, our parents said they were proud of us on social media today. But those are important moments because it is them acknowledging, yeah, we do this weird thing that they don't fully understand in terms of like why focus on bikes, whatever, or whatever we're focusing on. But they can see that, what we want to do is have an impact, and they can see that that's what we're getting to do in what we do. And so, yeah, I do joke with millennials and younger millennials. I guess we're sort of in that in between weird place.
Geriatric millennials.
And with Gen Z, but that essentially every generation before complains about the next generation being like, they're entitled or blah, blah, blah. And it's funny because when I watch our children and the things that annoy me about like little complaints they have, I'm like, I did this. This was my fault. I told them you can do whatever you want and work-life balance is important and all of these things. And of course, this is what Gen Z is focused on now. And who knows with Gen Alpha, what they'll be focused on. But yeah, of course, with our generation, it was work hard, go to school, get a job, and you'll be successful because that's what our parents told us.
Yeah.
So.
And now we're about creating a better world, right? Now we're all like have a purpose and are on a mission. And
exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
what if they don't have a purpose?
You know what? Maybe they'll be blissfully happy and not worrying about the world. But yeah, that's one thing we do say. Sometimes it would be nice to be ignorant to the challenges that we're facing, but. That's
I feel myself. I sometimes feel too aware around things.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing we're mindful of is our kids aren't stupid and they see and hear the news and the world that's happening around them, and it's very different from the world that was happening around us at that age, and so it's part of our motivation to let them do what they want, and if it's to go work in a bakery or work with their hands, and of course do what makes them happy and don't feel this pressure to save the world like their parents bizarrely have.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. I'm gonna thank you both for your time, for your wonderful invitation to sit on this bench in your neighborhood. For everyone watching, please follow your beautiful work and the books below in the caption. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video and our channels on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And thank you, Delft. It's a first.
Good.
Yes. So let's see which city is next. Have a nice day. Talk to you soon.
Thanks
Bye.
so much. Bye.